Hey guys, Omar here, and today we're going to take a look at the 23mm 1.4. I picked this lens up. I didn't pick this lens up. Thank you, B&H, for letting us play with the 23mm 1.4. They also let us play with the 100 to 400. I'll link that video up below. And the 35mm 1.4, which were all fun to play with. Now, those of you new to this channel, I don't do technical reviews. There's plenty of reviews that shoot brick walls and test corner sharpness. I go out and photograph for fun, for myself, and then I share with you guys my photographs and what my thoughts are overall about the lens. Now, after I mentioned the 23mm 1.4 in my last video, you guys mentioned try the Viltrox 1.4 millimeter lens, which is a little cheaper than the Fujifilm one. So I bought this guy with my own money, and I'll be coming out with a video comparing the two. If you are looking for a 23, you probably also have the 23mm f2. I did a review on that lens as well. I'll link that up below. But here, what are you getting for $899 for the 23mm 1.4? Well, first, you're getting a super well-built lens. It's in the same genre as the 16mm 1.4 as far as build quality goes, and the 56mm 1.2. If you have those lenses, man, spanking fresh metal, good weight to them. Build quality wise, it's not in the same genre as the 23mm f2 or the 35mm f2. If you have either one of those lenses, these are well built. They're just a little smaller, lighter. These guys are a little beefier, heavier, more glass, bigger glass. The 23mm has a clutch, much like the 14mm 2.8 from Fujifilm and also the 16mm 1.4. And I don't really use the clutch mechanism too much when I shoot because I will, and by the way, I have a tattoo on here. Yeah, I decided to get all tattooed up for this video. Actually, I have tons of gross poison ivy under here. I hate gardening. So the clutch mechanism allows you to just engage manual focus. You can manual focus, and then you can actually put the clutch back on to go to autofocus. Now, I don't really use that because what I do on my cameras is I set it to manual focus full time, and then I have my back button focus when I want to autofocus. So the clutch doesn't really come into play if you shoot that way. Ooh, I'm rhyming now. The Aperture Ring, Aperture Ring asthma. The Aperture Ring's a little kind of bumpable. So it could kind of move if you bump it a little. It's not as stiff as the 35 f2's Aperture Ring. And it's kind of on par with the 16mm. Okay, so it's got a little bit of play to it. It does come with a nice plasticky lens hood. It's also big and hunky, so it would have been nice to see more of a, here's the 16mm 1.4, is a little bit of a shorter lens hood there, you see that? And also the 35 has a cool lens hood as well compared to this 23, but it's something that you can purchase aftermarket. It fits a little bit better on the XT2, XT3, XT4. On the smaller cameras like the XT20, XT30, it is a little hunkin' big, but still totally doable on the smaller cameras, especially if you have a grip on there. You see my grip? Where we at here? So the first test I always do is a minimum focused test. And here we kind of, we focused on, and by the way, these images are in Capture One, Fujifilm Express Capture One, which is free. If you've only been editing and looking at your Fujifilm files on Lightroom, you should just download the free version of Capture One. Man, it's like, it just makes your images all that little crisper and better contrast than Lightroom. So check out Capture One, the free version, Capture One Express. Now, once I put the image into, look at the minimum focus distance here on Cap, and super sharp, and from his eyes being sharp, and look at the Hulk in the back, super delicious bokeh back there. So this lens shines. If you shoot the way I shoot, I like to shoot close to objects and then let the background go blurry. Here's another example. We have a little memory card here. You can see all its delicious scratches and everything, and there's my speaker in the background. And to you guys that think the f2 is better at this, let me show you this sample. Look at the fingerprints. The f2 version of the lens would be very hazy if you got close to objects at f2. You actually had to stop down to f4 to start getting some close objects to be sharp. But you should probably get the f2 if you don't shoot close up, wanting the background to be blurry. If you shoot mostly general purpose, the 23mm f2 will work fine. Now let me show you where this lens shines and where it is an advantage over the 23mm f2. If you're close to objects or medium distance to objects, like about 1 meter or so, or 2 meters, then and shoot at 1.4, this lens shines. So for example, this sign right here, shooting the sign, but the street in the background has that filmic bokeh quality look. You get that a little with the f2, but the 1.4 gives you that advantage. Another example, object medium or close up. This is a portrait, and the 1.4 allows the leaves in the background to go out of focus. Another example, you're focusing on an object or something. Look at the window in the background. The reflection blur is completely obliterated. Obliterated? Obliterated. And here's a picture of my guitar. Again, medium distance, and the background has a nice filmic blur to it. So again, this is the advantage of this lens. This is a salad, but look at the sink in the background. This is the minimum focus distance, focusing on this hydrant, so everything in the back is really blurry. Now here's where I would choose something like the 56mm 1.2 over this lens. For any full-size body shots, I feel like with crop sensor and Fujifilm, you just don't have enough blur in the background if you want to get that super filmic look. So this is at 1.4 getting a full body shot of someone, and you get a little bit of blur in the background. So here the lens doesn't shine as much as like the 56mm does at 1.2. Again, another perfect example. You're close to the object. Here I am close to my bicycle. The background looks beautiful. And by the way, here I'll mention a little bit, there is some chromatic aberration that you get from the lens a little bit. So just be aware, sometimes you do get some purple fringing on the lens. Here's another example at 1.4 where it's kind of like why you don't really get much from the 1.4. Yes, there is bokeh and a little bit of blur, but again, if you move close to objects, distance really gives you beautiful soft bokeh in the background. Okay, so that's where the lens sorta shines. Medium to close distance so that you could get the full benefit of that 1.4. It also would benefit if you shoot at night to keep your ISOs down. Shooting at 1.4 will give you a whole extra stop or two of ISO so your images are less grainy. Now here's where I would just rather have the 23mm f2 lens. So for an image like this, it's flat. I'm shooting it at 5.6. The image is sharp, but it's kind of not using the full potential of the 1.4. Same thing here, I'm shooting the image at 5.6 so that I could get a lot in focus. But again, the lesson here is that 23mm is such a great focal length, like a general focal length for street photography, for landscape, for documentary work, for home, if you're taking pictures of the kids and stuff. And that's what's great about the 23mm, it gives you a wide enough field of view for a general purpose lens. And the next two examples I'll show you is, it doesn't matter if you shoot at f7.1 or f1.4. I'm shooting this at 1.4 in full sunlight, and it doesn't matter. Everything across the street is very sharp, very in focus. I don't need to shoot this picture at 1.4. Only if there was something in the foreground that I really wanted blurry. And there's just a parked car over here, so it doesn't matter. And this one is shot at 7.1. Between the two, they're both sharp, they're both two-dimensional flat. And so again, think about if you really do need a 23mm 1.4. If your style calls for a background or a foreground that's blurry, man, this lens is amazing and awesome. If you don't really need that extra buttery smoothness, then the f2 is really good enough for you. This just shows you, man, how sharp this lens is. Shooting across the street, just super, super crazy, crispy sharp, man. Again, I said I don't shoot brick walls. Here's a brick wall example. Colors and contrasts right from camera are rendered beautifully through the lens. So that's something to think about, is not all 23s are built equally. Like the little cheap Zonlai 22mm lens I have, that had strange colors and it didn't really have much contrast. So the images that come out of the 23 1.4 are crispy. They have got great color. They're clean. And so, yeah, enough said. And over here, you notice I haven't done anything to the images. And what I'll do is I'll link up a gallery below of the JPEGs straight out of camera. They may not be as pretty because sometimes the RAW file has more information. But check out that gallery below if you want to download the images and just check them out for yourself. This one is shot at 1.4, so you can see that you can get some bokeh, close to the camera. But again, also this is an example of where you have that purple fringing, and you can get rid of that easily in post, but just be aware of that. Again, this lens shines when we're talking bokeh, but you should use your bokeh responsibly. Here's an image of sandwiches. I took at 1.4, and I noticed that I was trying to focus here, and if you notice, the focal plane on the bread is a little lower. And when you're close to objects, your depth of field is so slight that our mutz here is not sharp, but our bread is. Overall, would I recommend the lens? Look how beautiful that is. Again, if you're taking pictures like this, if you're taking pictures that are flat and don't have much depth, if you're doing street photography, I would go for the f2 lens. I think that lens is a little lighter, has weather resistance, is smaller for kit, for walking around, less intrusive. However, if you're like a bokeh junkie and you shoot stuff that's kind of close, like the guitar picture, or you're shooting portraits at this focal length, that 1.4 gives you that extra little butteriness, and with the awesome color rendition and the contrast that comes right from the lens, it really is a pretty lens. More than the Viltrox that I've been playing around with, but we'll do a video on that a little later. So overall, it's a full maybe on this lens. You have to know how you shoot and what's important to you, but it really is a beautiful, wonderful lens. I have a lot of fun playing with this lens, more so than the 35 1.4 like I told you in the last video. All right, I hope that was helpful, guys. I'll see you next time.